Alright everyone, welcome back. We have pretty much, I guess we're nearing the end of Modern Horizons 2 spoilers, but we still have some pretty good cards to go over. We have some amazing reprints. I mean, this set is great for reprints, of course. But we get Titania, Protector of Argoth. Now, this was from the 28th. Great reprint, a very expensive commander going back to Commander 2014. I mean, the low print run, the fact that it's not the easiest to reprint these in any set, it's going to make them a little bit more expensive than some other pre-con commanders, but she's always been a pretty good one. And then from the 29th, we do get a few cards here. We get Moderation, 3 mana white-blue enchantment. You can't cast more than one spell each turn. Whenever you cast a spell, you draw a card. Now, I don't know how this would be useful to you, but if you have any way of giving it to your opponent using a commander like Zedru, you could easily punish them. You give it to them, they can still cast a spell, but they can't cast more than one spell each turn. They get to draw a card off of that, yeah, but they can't keep going. You know, they can't go off, they can't storm. So I think that's a pretty good card for that strategy. We get Nettle Cyst. We get this really cool card here, 3 mana artifact equipment with living weapons. So that means when it enters, you get a 0/0 black Phyrexian Germ creature token and then attach the equipment to it. The equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each artifact and or enchantment you control with an equip cost of 2. So if you're a fan of Alila, this is something I think would fit in pretty well if you're looking to make more of an equipment strategy, since you have a benefit here for both artifacts and enchantments. And then we get a reprint here of Cursed Totem, 2 mana artifact activated abilities if creatures can't be activated. Personally, I'm a bigger fan of Null Rod. I think Null Rod is a little bit more impactful in a competitive game. And then we get Archon of Cruelty. This is from the 30th. 8 mana black Archon flying. Whenever Archon of Cruelty enters the battlefield or attacks, target opponent sacks a creature or planeswalker, discards a card, and loses 3 life. You draw a card and gain 3 life. So you get kind of this one-sided benefit off of an 8 mana creature, and you have to keep in mind this is for Modern. It's useful in Commander, but you have to look at every card here as if it were playable in Modern, which that's the intention. And if you're looking to reanimate it easily in Modern, I think it can be a pretty powerful card. You get a 6/6 flyer, and you have a way of taking away card advantage from your opponent. This is the kind of card that I think is going to fit in well with those sorts of strategies. And this card here, I think it might be one of the better uncommons, if not the best uncommon I've seen in this set so far. Tireless Provisioner, 3 mana Elf Scout. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, create a food token or a treasure token. So if you're a fan of landfall strategies, I mean, the rich just keeps getting richer here. You're going to get treasure tokens, which I don't know why you would choose food over treasure. But getting more mana after you play your land, after you're getting mana that way, any way to benefit off of those tokens, you're going to have a pretty good time. Cards like these that reward you for playing your lands are already staples in the format. And then we get Necrogoyf, 5 mana black creature Lurgoyf. Necrogoyf's power is equal to the number of creatures in all graveyards at the beginning of each player's upkeep. That player discards a card and a madness cost of 3. This card I think is going to be pretty solid if you can get it for the madness cost, which if we're talking about reanimator strategies or potential reanimator strategies in Modern, I think Necrogoyf is going to have a place, no doubt. And then we have Shardless Agent. We get a good reprint here. I love Cascade. Even though I think it's a busted mechanic, if you get free cards off of casting one card, and it's at random pretty much, it's just off the top of your library, that's always fun for me. And introducing it to Modern, I mean, that's going to be pretty powerful. We get a reprint of Chainer Nightmare Adept. That's a pretty good reprint. One of my favorite commanders from Commander 2019 too. And then we get, if you're a fan of Affinity, this card is going to be pretty crazy, Thought Monitor. 7 mana artifact creature construct affinity for artifacts, so that just means it costs 1 less for each artifact you control. It has flying it when it enters the battlefield, you draw 2 cards, so it's essentially a Mull Drifter, but for affinity decks, expect to pay very little mana for it. And getting a 2/2 flyer that draws you 2 cards in Modern, if you can get it down pretty low, now that we have the artifact dual lands, they come into play tapped, which is a concern, but it makes it easier for you to get that number of artifacts higher. And you may not even have to do that in Modern, but if you get that cost low, you have essentially 2 cards for 1 on a very cheap creature. I think this is definitely going to be good for Modern. And then we have Search the Premises, a 4 mana white enchantment. Whenever a creature attacks you or a planeswalker you control, investigate. So it's kind of like other enchantments that punish your opponents whenever they attack you, but this time you get to investigate, you get a clue token. Don't know how much of a deterrent that is going to be, but this is also in Modern too, so keep that in mind. That being said, clues are kind of weak. Here we have Sithis Hand of the Harvests. Now I have to translate this, but this is probably going to be one of my favorite creatures in this whole set. I'm a big fan of enchantresses. Green-white, so only 2 mana for a legendary enchantment creature, Nymph. Whenever you cast an enchantment spell, you gain 1 life and draw a card. So right on par with all the other enchantresses where you cast an enchantment, you get to draw a card. This one also gains you life. There's a ton of enchantment support in this set, and we already have a ton of it for green and white, so she's going to fit in pretty well. She's going to be a great commander too. Very cheap, can get out there early, and you can just keep casting enchantments and drawing cards and keep a full hand. That's exactly what you want to do in green and white. And then we get a reprint of Riptide Laboratory. Very necessary. Now that this is in Modern, you can have some fun with things like Venser, Shaper Savant. Wizard Control is going to be pretty fun. Then we get Chitter Spitter, 3 mana green artifact at the beginning of your upkeep. You may sack a token if you do put an Acorn counter on Chitter Spitter. Squirrels you control get +1/+1 for each Acorn counter on Chitter Spitter. And you can pay 1 green and tap it to create a 1/1 green squirrel creature token. And then we have Dauthi Voidwalker, 2 mana black Dauthi Rogue with Shadow. If a card would be put into an opponent's graveyard from anywhere, instead exile it with a void counter on it, and you can tap and sacrifice Dauthi Voidwalker. Choose an exiled card an opponent owns with a void counter on it. You may play it this turn without paying its mana costs. And we have Bloodbraid Marauder, 2 mana human berserker. Bloodbraid Marauder can't block. It has Delirium. This spell has Cascade as long as there are 4 or more card types among cards in your graveyard. That's going to be pretty solid. Get some type of Cascade aggro going. If you have a way of giving your creatures haste in Modern, that's going to be powerful. And then we get, if you remember, the last Modern Horizons, there was a card called Mox Tantalite, and it was basically just a suspend version of like a Mox card. Soul Talisman is essentially like that, but for Sol Ring. So you get the suspend version of Sol Ring where you have to pay 1 mana and wait a few turns, and then you get your Sol Ring. Don't think that's going to be that good unless you have a way of cascading it out, unless you have a way of getting it off the top of your library without paying its suspend cost so you get it for free. Not really something I think is going to take off though. And then we have Inevitable Betrayal for the 31st here to wrap it up. We have a suspend cost of 3 mana. Search target opponent's library for a creature card and put that card onto the battlefield under your control. Then that player shuffles. So that is pretty good. I think that's definitely worth the wait as opposed to Soul Talisman, because that will actually have an impact mid to late game. And then to wrap it up here on the first, we get Magus of the Bridge. So a 3 mana human wizard. Whenever a non-token creature is put into your graveyard from the battlefield, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. When a creature is put into an opponent's graveyard from the battlefield, exile Magus of the Bridge. So being Modern playable, I think this is going to be pretty sweet. It's a 4/4 for 3, so you get good stats there. If you have any way of abusing sack outlets, anything like that, you get a ton of zombies off of this. I think it's going to be a fun strategy. And then we have one more card here. We have Murktide Regent, a 7 mana mythic rare blue dragon with Delve and Flying. So Delve just means you can exile a card in your graveyard to pay for 1 generic mana and its mana cost. It enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it for each instant and sorcery card exiled with it. And whenever an instant or sorcery card leaves your graveyard, put a +1/+1 counter on Murktide Regent. So something that is likely going to be a good card for control. In Commander, I'm not so certain of its playability, but in Modern, definitely. So anyway, let me know what you think about the spoilers up to June 1st. You all have a wonderful day. Again, if you haven't already, subscribe, like, comment, share, hit that notification bell. Check out my merch, see if there's anything there that you like. Void here signing off. See you all next time.